If you're new here, I have been doing commentary videos about J-Lo and Ben Affleck and what seems to be the demise of their marriage. But lately I've been thinking a lot about the dynamics of that relationship, and it occurred to me, this is the same dynamic that played out in another relationship with another famous woman, Taylor Swift. Both J-Lo and Taylor, two very smart, talented, famous, intelligent women, made the exact mistake when getting into their last failed relationship. And I want to explore that really briefly in this video. What is that mistake? I'll tell you. But before we do that, please subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you be a part of our small but growing group of friends. Thank you so much, and now let's get into the video. Now, some months ago, I did a video talking about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's relationship. They're still together. And I was wondering what was behind this new relationship. Is it publicity? Is it the real deal? Is it a rebound relationship? But in that video, I talked about the fact that I am convinced that Joe Alwyn was the love of Taylor's life. He was, based on her old patterns, what I believe, the perfect man for her. He's British. We know Taylor loves English men. He's handsome. He's talented. He has his own career. He was supportive of her career. They wrote songs together. And he was, to this date, the longest relationship she has been in, 6 years. Now, when a relationship is that important, that significant, it lasts that long, and they seem to be very compatible, you can't help but think those two were made for each other. But when it ended, after 6 years, it was clear to me that this was something that was going to take Taylor a while to get over. She quickly rebounded with this guy, Matty Healy. And I, like most people, assumed that he was just a quick rebound, something to get her mind off of Joe, try to maybe get him jealous, maybe want to make him try to come back to her. And I believed, like most people, that her next album would heavily talk about the demise of her relationship with Joe Alwyn. This is something that Taylor tends to do when a relationship ends. She kind of flames her exes in her music. And I assumed that this would be the case. And so Taylor drops her latest album, The Tortured Poets Department. It is, as we expected, a breakup album. It's filled with lots of sad songs, some angry songs. And everyone assumed she's talking about Joe. But upon close examination and listening to the songs and looking at the titles and looking at the timeline, it started to dawn on people. Wait. This album is not about Joe Alwyn. This album is mostly about Matty Healy, the guy she spent 2 months in a relationship with. That's the guy she wrote this entire album about. It seems so preposterous to me that this entire album could be about such a brief little fling, it seems, that I even began to develop a conspiracy theory, and I thought, okay, these songs were really about Joe. And I don't know if you remember, but when she announced the title of the album, and it was clear that this was going to be some kind of a breakup album, Joe Alwyn's representative, his PR people, started firing warning shots. They started saying things like, well, we hope that this album is not going to just focus on Joe and the breakup, because Joe has been very respectful and has kept his mouth shut about the relationship. We hope that Taylor will do the same thing. And so my theory was the album is really about Joe, but she changed some of the lyrics to make it seem that it's about Matty as a kind of a, you're so vain, you probably think this album is about you, but it's not. It's about this other guy. And my relationship that only lasted 2 months with him was more significant than the 6 years with you. That's what I assumed that was going on, because I said it can't be about Matty Healy. But then I started seeing commentary videos, and I want to shout out 2 in particular. This video by this guy, he calls himself Swiftologist. That boy was on top of it, and he traced a timeline that shows that the relationship with Matty Healy didn't only last 2 months. This is something that has been smoldering for years. In fact, it has been apparently a whole decade since this saga between Taylor and Matty began. And most of us weren't even aware of it because it was mostly a kind of innocent flirting, it seemed, that was happening online mostly. And they were sending messages to each other. They were giving each other little subtle shout outs. But it seems like it always was more than just that. And then they actually had contact at some point. There was another video that I want to shout out is by this YouTuber that I'm loving her videos. She goes by Scandy, and just yesterday as I was getting ready to put out this video, I saw the latest one that she put out where she actually goes into more detail and providing more evidence of this long burning yearning that has been going on between Taylor and Maddie for about 10 years. That it finally peaked when they made the relationship public last year, and just as quickly as it started, it burned away. But let's say that that's true. Let's say that Taylor and Maddie were kind of doing this dance between them, this yes, this no, this I like you, but I can't be with you, and I'm with somebody else, but right now I'm single, but you're not single, and I would like to, this yearning, this circling around each other has been going on for such a long time. How can that be a more impactful relationship than the relationship she had with Joe? 6 years with this man that apparently was perfect for her. A relationship that started at a time when Taylor desperately needed somebody in her corner. This was at the height of her scandal between her and Kanye and Kim. As we know, the whole saga between Taylor Swift and Kanye West started when he interrupted her acceptance speech at the VMAs and embarrassed her, and this started a long enmity between the two of them. Eventually they made up, they became friends. She became kind of friendly with him and Kim, but then Kanye released this song called Famous where he made a lewd line insulting Taylor Swift. When the song comes out, Taylor says, I told him not to come out with this line because I knew that it was going to be insulting. But then Kim releases a recording that was made of a conversation between Taylor and Kanye, in which Kanye asked permission for one piece of that line, not the one that she complained about. She complained about being called a bitch. That's what she objected to. But then when he was talking to her on the phone, he says, hey, what if I say me and Taylor might still have sex? Is that okay? And she said, yeah, sure, that's fine. So Kim strategically released the video to make it seem that they had a conversation about the lyrics, but the video shows that he only talked about half of the lyrics, not the one specifically where she objected to being called a bitch. This was very deceiving, but for some reason the public they kind of fell for it, and they were like, oh wow, Taylor is lying. The backlash was swift, it was fierce. She was almost canceled. People are leaving snake emojis on her comment section, suggesting that she was a snake, that she was deceitful, when in fact she was telling the truth. But it doesn't matter in the court of public opinion because the public had already decided that Taylor is enemy number one. It was very traumatic for her apparently. She kind of went under, and it was during this time when she was hiding from the public that she met Joe Alwyn. And he became kind of her rescuer. He rescued her from everybody. She went to England to be with him in London. They quarantined together. They wrote songs together. He was in her corner. You can't tell me that that relationship was not the most significant, the most important relationship in her life. And I still, to a great extent, believe that the bulk of the album was originally written for Joe. Here is further proof that the Tortured Poets Department was originally written for Joe Alwyn. Listen to this.
The fans. So I want to say thank you to the fans by telling you a secret that I've been keeping from you for the last 2 years. My brand new album comes out April 19th. It's called The Tortured Poets Department.
Did you catch that? She said she'd been working on that album for 2 years. She made this announcement on February 4th, 2024. 2 years before, in 2022, her relationship with Joe Alwyn was coming to an end. She hadn't even started her relationship with Maddie Healy until 2023. Taylor spent a whole year writing songs of longing and heartbreak and disappointment, a whole year before she even rekindled whatever thing she had with Matty Healy. And all those breakup songs, how could they have been about a man she hadn't even started dating again? So like I said, the songs were originally about Joe. When Joe fired that warning shot, be careful what you say, she felt insulted, like, don't tell me what to do. And you know what? I'm about to switch everything. I'm about to make it about Maddie to hit you where it hurts, in your ego. You think everything is about you. It's not this time. That's my theory. But as it usually happens with a lot of long-term relationships, the relationship with Joe started dying. And as she's seeing the death of this most significant relationship in her life, and by the way, Taylor Swift has been on tour for 100 years. Why is this tour so long? This is what I believe. I believe that Taylor designed the Eras Tour, a tour in which she does an homage to all her songs in her extensive career. Taylor Swift is only in her early 30s, but she has been doing this since she was a teenager. So she's been doing this for at least 17 years. And in that time span, she has acquired quite a discography that she has accumulated over the years. And I believe that Taylor designed this tour as a kind of a farewell tour for the first half of her career, because I believe that she believed that at the end of this tour, she was going to go ahead, marry Joe, have children, maybe take some time away from the spotlight, raise children, and then after her children were a little older, they were in school, she was going to come back and do music. But that's why this tour feels so huge and so monumental. It was supposed to be a farewell tour so she can go off into the sunset with Joe Alwyn. Well, that didn't happen. The relationship came to an end. And when you have a relationship that is that important, that you are willing to make such major changes to your life and your career and establish a family and kind of go into the second chapter of your life, when that comes to an end, what happens? You kind of fall into a kind of a depression where you wonder, okay, so the life that I had envisioned for myself for the next 10 years is coming to an end. What do I do? How do I come up from this? You begin to obsess about the one that got away, the one that never was, the what if guy, like Scandi said in her video. The what if guy is larger than life. He's pretty much perfect. Why is that? Because you never got to have a fully fleshed out relationship with him. The relationship, whatever fling she had with Maddie back in the day, it's believed that it was in 2016, it was very brief, it was very passionate, and it just ended in a flash. It ended where they were still in the infatuation period. The circumstances for the relationship ending may have been murky. There was some drug issues. Maddie has been open about his drug struggles. Maybe that played a part. But maybe because their careers were incandescent, at least hers. And she couldn't really stay with him and deal with whatever it is that he was bringing into her life. So it had to end really quickly before they could see the deep flaws in each other's characters, before they could see how incompatible they were. All that were left are memories of a relationship that was young, that was fun, that was brief, that was exciting and passionate, and ended too soon. When you have something like that, it lives kind of like a fairy tale, because you don't get to live the real life story. In real life, relationships have ups and downs. You have your infatuation period where everything is exciting, but then when that falls off, you kind of fall into something that is more mature, more fleshed out, more complete. And in that period, you have moments of boredom, and you have moments of sadness, and you have moments where you question whether the relationship should move on. Her relationship with Joe was more fleshed out. It had the ups and downs of a more seasoned relationship, something she never had with Maddie. So in her mind, this relationship with Maddie was the perfect relationship that just ended too soon. That brings me to J-Lo and Ben. The same thing happened there. Ben and JLo got engaged really quickly. I believe it was just 4 months after they started dating in 2002. So you have a relationship that is just 4 months in, you decide to get married, and then you spend the rest of the relationship planning a wedding that never happened. It was too brief for them to really get to know each other as boyfriend and girlfriend, what that relationship is really going to be. And just like when Taylor was experiencing the ending of what was supposed to be her forever relationship, as that was ending and it was too painful for her to consider the fact that her forever love, she was losing him or he was losing her, instead of dealing with those feelings, she decided to indulge into the fantasy of maybe Joe isn't the one. Maybe it was Maddie. I believe that that's the same thing that started happening with JLo, as her forever love, her love of her life, Alex Rodriguez, as that relationship that she saw forever with was coming to an end, instead of dealing with the pain or maybe try to make it work, she started indulging in the fantasy of, what if me and Ben had actually worked out? Maybe Ben was the real love of my life. He's the one that got away. He's the one that, if we could just find our way back to each other, then it will be forever. But in both these cases, when JLo ran back to Ben and Taylor ran back to Maddie, they came to the realization that this guy that they had mythologized in their minds, that they thought that he was the be-all, end-all, that it was the real love story that just didn't come to fruition. They both came to the realization it didn't work out the first time because he wasn't the one either. And that was the big mistake. They left something that made more sense, that was more up their alley, for the one that got away, for the what if guy. The guy that should have been left where they left them. But because they never got to have that fleshed out, full-on relationship with that guy, he became the fantasy in their minds, the perfect guy. The timing was just wrong. The relationship was perfect, but the timing was wrong. And when they went back to them, they realized the relationship was never perfect. Maddie's still struggling with substance abuse. He's still this flaky guy that disappears when things get difficult. Ben is still the impulsive guy with the addictive personality who runs when things get difficult. They forgot that part because we tend to remember things with rose-colored glasses. I've been seeing a lot of nostalgia content on Instagram. Lots of things, reminiscing about the 80s and the 70s and how wonderful life used to be back in the day. And it struck me in particular when I was looking at this account that was showing about Christmas in the 70s. And it was just so nostalgic. You saw the Christmas trees with the multiple colored lights and the tinsel. Remember tinsel? Is tinsel still allowed? I heard that it's bad for the environment, and I guess that's why you don't see it anymore in Christmas decorations. But when I was a little girl growing up in the 70s, I remember we used to have tinsel in the trees, and there were all these beautiful photos remembering Christmas in the 70s, and all the comments were saying, oh my gosh, I want to go back there so bad. Those were the good old days. Those were the perfect days. Okay, I have to move because the sun is moving and this is the best that I can do. So let's just roll with it. But there were all these comments of people talking about how the 70s were the greatest time to be alive and what a wonderful time. And if we could just go back to those days because today sucks and we want to go back to that. And it was interesting because I didn't grow up here, but I know what the 70s were like in the United States. And the 70s was a time of great turmoil. The economy wasn't doing so great. Inflation was worse than what it was now. Gas prices were ridiculous. There was some kind of a situation going on in the Middle East with OPEC. And so there was oil shortages. So of course prices were up. I remember seeing photos and videos of lines of people going into the gas station because oil was scarce and people would be in line waiting for their chance to get gas, and the car would run out of gas while they were waiting to go into the pump. And sometimes by the time they got there and they pushed their car to the pump, they put up a sign that says, we're out of gas. The Vietnam War was coming to a disastrous end. Crime was through the roof here in this country during the 70s. So it wasn't this magnificent time that people were talking about. Why do we remember the 70s as the good old days, even though today we are significantly, exponentially better off than things were in the 70s? Because we remember things with nostalgia and rose-colored glasses. We always look back fondly. We always remember the past better than what it was. And it's the same thing that happens when you think about that ex that lasted very briefly, the relationship, and you weren't able to really have everything that you wanted to have. And these two very talented, very smart women fell for this. These relationships with the what if guy didn't last long. But these women really thought, okay, this is it. This is going to be the forever. Forgetting that these were the same guys that cut and run back when the relationship happened the first time. There's a line in my favorite Tortured Poet song, The Black Dog. That's my favorite song in that album, where Taylor says, "You said I need a brave man, then proceeded to play one until I believed it too." Meaning that he probably made all these promises. There's other songs in the album where apparently Maddie was, suggesting that they were going to get married and have kids and they were going to be together forever. But this is the same guy who was a mess all those years back and left when things got difficult. Same thing with J-Lo. I remember when she did this interview with Apple Music and she said that Ben would sign off all the letters he was sending her when they rekindled their relationship with the words, "not going anywhere." In other words, I'm not going to run away this time.
He put not period, going period, anywhere period, because that's how he would sign his emails when we started talking again. Like, don't worry,
Wow.
I'm not going anywhere.
Wow.
And I wrote that song.
I think one of the songs in the album is titled Not Going Anywhere. But what did he do when things got difficult? He packed his things and moved to a house that he has to pay $100,000 a month to live in just to get away from her. As a matter of fact, when J-Lo and Ben eloped and went to Las Vegas, after that little wedding, they went on a little mini honeymoon to Europe. I talked about this in the previous video. I think I did this video when they had just gotten married. They went to Europe. It was clear that Ben was having a hard time with all the attention they were getting in Europe. So he left her. He left their honeymoon. The man didn't even wait until they got back from the honeymoon to start showing Jennifer, "I already showed you who I am. I ain't no different this time." But she really believed that it was going to be different this time. Why? Rose-colored glasses. So what's the obvious lesson of the story? Let the past be the past. You know how Maya Angelou had this saying, when someone shows you who they are, believe them? If he showed you in the past who he was, there's no need for you to assume that things are different. He already showed you who he is. He leaves. He's impulsive. He's a mess. He's not going to commit to you when it's not convenient for him. Let the past be the past, and let the past show you what the future is going to look like. If you're going to take a leap and go for a relationship because you want the happiness and the happy ending, go for the one that makes sense. Work on the relationship that has potential, with the guy that has already shown you that he has what it takes to stay with you. Try to work it out, and there's no guarantee that it's going to last. I mean, relationships that are long-term come to an end all the time. All I'm saying is, instead of dropping what's safe for the risk of what could be, maybe before you do that, give it one last chance. Give it one last valiant try to save the relationship that makes more sense with the more stable guy, the guy that is the family man, the guy that wants to be with you, that has more in common with you. Try to make that work all the way to the end instead of leaving it and saying, the shiny new thing awaits me over there. And finally, trust that who you are today is not the same person you were in the past. And the things that you craved and that served you in the past may not serve you now, because you're not that same person that you were. When I think about all my past relationships, I think about them very fondly. I don't remember, or at least it's not that present in my mind, the bad times. I really look back and remember all the good times and the wonderful times that I spent with each and every one of them. Even the ones that cheated on me, even the ones that lied, even the ones that were emotionally unavailable. I still remember them fondly, but who I was in the past settled for those guys. But who I am today deserves better because I am better. I'm more confident. I'm a better human being. I have worked on myself. And as fondly as I remember all those past relationships, none of them would serve me today because who I was then is nowhere here anymore. I'm a completely different person and I deserve a completely different love story this time. I wish everybody the best, but let's learn from them. So what do you think? Do you agree with what I had to say? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know, did I miss something? Do you think it's a stretch for me to compare those two situations? I think I did a pretty good job drawing the line between the two. Let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you join our growing family. I would love to get to 2,000 pretty soon. We were getting there and then I lost a couple of people. So let's get to 2,000 subscribers, shall we? Please give it a like if you enjoyed this. Share it with others. Share it on all your other social media platforms so we can start that discussion and maybe other people can add their 2 cents to what I was saying. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please watch my other videos. I have videos linked below. Once again, thank you so much for watching and hopefully I will see you in the next one.